Welcome to today's video, you guys, where we are going to be talking about how to find your authentic self. Living authentically, broadly speaking, means that you come forth as your genuine self, that you accept yourself and you know who you are at your core. You make your priorities and decisions in alignment to that, and you show up as this person in your relationships, in your friendships, at your workplace, and just life in general. And this is quite important because if you are showing up as your authentic self, your life will become more meaningful and you will be aligned with your purpose. Because if you're expressing like your true nature, or at least if you're aware of it, then you manifest those sort of opportunities and people into your life. So it's like you experience what you're actually meant to experience. It's almost like everything clicks, everything makes sense. So you can start by identifying your values. What are your core values? So these are basically belief systems, kind of like driving force that act as your motivators to make decisions, to want certain people, to want certain experiences, etc., etc. Now, a lot of times what we believe to be our core value is actually a coping mechanism, and it is influenced by a lot of external factors. We adapted these things to be liked, to be accepted, to fit in, or whatever the reason is. For example, maybe you come from a family that really values money and material success, but you value emotional connections a lot more. But because you've grown up with these people for such a long time, you naturally adapt their beliefs as your own. So for the longest time, you probably thought that, you really value money and material success. But maybe once you start filtering out, you realize that it's actually not that important to you. Emotional connection is more meaningful to you. It's important that you start filtering out these external influences in order to understand what your core values actually are. So you can start this by evaluating your priorities and questioning why they are there in the first place. When you have a truthful reflection, they're influenced by other people, other situations, and they're not perhaps coming from you. So once you understand this difference and you remove these expectations that you've taken on from other people, you can start identifying what your values actually are, what is important to you, what is meaningful to you. And another way you can do this is by thinking about the times when you felt the happiest, when you felt the most content, the most at peace, and noticing what you were doing at that point, who you were surrounded by, stuff like that. You can also think about when you were younger, before family influenced you, or your teachers influenced you, or just the world came in between. You can talk to your parents or just elders who saw you when you were younger, or you could look at your pictures and just notice what were the things that brought you a lot of joy at that age. Because when we are children, we are closest to our authentic selves because we are not yet affected by the world. So these moments can give you clues as to what your core values could be. Obviously, this takes time, but I think the more you keep note of these things, the more you notice yourself in these situations and just question yourself, is this really what I want to do? Is this really what brings me meaning? You can start identifying what values actually drive you. The next thing to notice is who you are when no one's watching. So what do you do? Who are you? How do you act when you are by yourself in a safe space? Now, if you're anything like I was some time ago, and I still am sometimes, and you always act like somebody's watching you, then I think it's really important that you start holding acceptance and love for yourself so you can feel safe to express yourself. Generally speaking, we all have a time and a place where we take off that mask and become ourselves. This is quite close to your authentic self, as you're no longer wearing a mask, as you no longer have to act a certain way. You can just be yourself. For example, maybe you really love dressing up, but your culture or the friends you're surrounded by, they think that it's very extra, or you like to wear certain kinds of things which people could probably judge you for outside. When you're by yourself, what things bring you joy? How does expressing yourself bring you joy? When you start figuring this out, you can start finding the courage and the opportunities to show up as this person, even with others around. And lastly, notice the kind of people you are attracted to. The people you find cool, the people you find yourself being drawn towards, they can tell you so much about who you are. I'm not necessarily talking about romantic attraction because it gets a little complicated, but just people you want to hang out with, people you want to be friends with, or people you want to be surrounded by. Because what you see in others, you can only see that in them if it's present within yourself. So once you start removing these layers of expectations, you will notice that there are specific kind of people you are attracted to, you're drawn towards. And these could be like celebrities, people online, somebody in your friend group, somebody at your workplace, somebody in your family, literally like anybody. And you could be attracted to their lifestyle or the work they do or their hobbies, the way they dress, the way they carry themselves. And once you can pinpoint what this attribute is, you'll realize that you have the same attribute or the quality within yourself. And the reason you're drawn to them is because this quality is wanting to be expressed, and not just wanting to be expressed, but it's also quite important to your life. And if you make this a priority, then you'll just feel a lot more satisfied in your life. Notice the patterns in you being drawn to certain people, even to certain stories, and figure out what it is that's really resonating with you about them. Now, these are all obviously just starting points. Becoming your authentic self takes time. It takes patience, efforts, learning and unlearning so much. You gradually become this version, and there's so many factors involved in it. And even though it's good and it's important to be on this journey, I don't think there's any need to feel pressured about it. You're not a fake or a hypocrite if you are not expressing yourself authentically all the time. I used to believe in something like this, wherein I felt like I cannot talk about these things if I'm not there 100%. That's quite unrealistic. That's quite tough to achieve, like when you're just starting on this journey. So you can totally show up as your partly authentic self by being as genuine as you've learned to be, and you can figure out the rest along the way eventually. I think the point is to be aware of your own authenticity, so when the time comes when everything aligns and when you can be your authentic self, you know who that person is. So yeah, that's all I wanted to share with you today. All the very best for this journey, and I will see you again.